Hello, and thanks for joining us on Cherries Red Army. Wherever you are in the world, we hope you're having a fantastic week. This is Cherries in Focus, episode 2, interactive and live on YouTube and Twitter. If you're on Twitter, head over to YouTube. Better interactive experience. Lots to go through on this video. We're going to look at that win versus Southampton 3-2, third win in a row at St Mary's. We're also going to take a look at the good and some of the stuff that we learned from that result. We got a bit of fun in the middle. Your top 3 favourite players that have played for both Bournemouth and Southampton. Start thinking about it. It'll come halfway through the show. We'll wrap up some of the other news that's done the rounds in the last 7 days. And then we've got to talk about Philip Billing. Got a contract, 12 months left. We're going to revisit it. What do the club do? We'll take a look at the pitch and where other players could fit into this role, but a big conversation to be had about Philip Billing. And if we've got time, we'll have a look at some more rumours. Do subscribe, do hit the like button, do let us know you're in the interactive chat. Let's do it. Episode 2. And here we go. He's back. Had an international break, I think, but he's back on club stuff now. Jon, how you doing? Jon Spark, how's your week going?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for having me back on again. Yeah, it's been good. Done a little thing as well, sort of with a TV company earlier this week as well. That might end up on your screens at some point in a few weeks' time. So look forward to spreading that when it happens. But in the meantime, great to be back and focused on Bournemouth with you guys.
Yeah, we'll also let you know on the socials when that happens, because hopefully Cherries Red Army got a plug, and I'm sure they did. Sure, we did. Steve Hensman, how's your week going? We'll talk about Southampton. You were there last night. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well, mate. Yeah, I was there last night. Good to see the boys for the first time this season. So yeah, a few things to discuss.
And our final guest on episode 2 of Cherries in Focus from Australia. We'll get a time check from David Codron. How are you doing, my friend?
Very well, thanks, Kirk. Yeah, 5 a.m. this morning at the moment, so pretty early.
Commitment, that is.
Commitment on the pitch last night on the South Coast, commitment in Australia. So thanks for David for joining us as well. Who's joining us in the chat? We've got Chris Hubble, Ian Thompson. How are you doing? Lots to discuss. We've got Omid, Mark Cole, AFC Bournemouth, Germany, Cameron Meach, and we've got JP Sports Group. Evening. Thanks for the insightful content. Yeah, look, lots to discuss this evening, and we're going to get straight into it, guys, because last night AFC Bournemouth went to St Mary's in pre-season, first proper game on English turf, and a third win in a row at that stadium, Jon. It was 3-2 goals for both teams. We'll get more into the breakdown of it, but a good run out by the looks of it for Andoni's Iraola's Bournemouth team.
Yeah, I do think that it's easy to look too much into results in preseason games. People can get rather negative when you lose, and obviously we were all a little bit concerned when it got 2-2. But in the end of the day, it's getting minutes in the legs, and particularly when you've got a new manager and a completely new system, one that Bournemouth have not even been close to using since the days of Eddie, and even then that was sort of more early on in his reign with us. So yeah, just good to get a win as well, obviously, but yeah, to get what looked like pretty darn close to our strongest 11 out on the pitch and see what they can do in this new system was good to see.
Nearly close to our strongest 11, says John Steve. And if we look at that Bournemouth lineup, it's a 4-2-3-1. That's what SofaScore is saying. Neto, Smith, Senesi, Mepham. Kirkes straight in there for a start. Lewis Cook, Philip Billing deeper in this formation. And then Utara, Christie, Jaden Anthony, Dom Solanke. So a strong 11 going into this fixture. Happy to see that as you travelled up the road to go and watch the fixture.
Yeah, I don't necessarily concur. That was what we was watching on the pitch, that formation. I don't think Philip Billing was that deep at all. It was more like a 4-1-4-1 with Lewis on there doing that sort of protective role on his own. Ryan a bit more box to box, and Phil doing his usual 10. That's how I saw it. But yeah, very good outing for the lads. They were tough opposition, Saints. You know, they're no mugs. They still got some highly rated players in there. Romeo Lavia, I thought, was good for them. So it's a good test, and we came through it. It will be some dodgy moments, but yeah, good to see all the fans again. That was what was good as well, just to get back in amongst the AFC Bournemouth fans and meet a few familiar faces. And it was all good on a Tuesday night.
David, good to see a proper left back at left back, and we're going to talk about Kirkes in a minute. But yeah, I mean, no Rothwell in there, no Sabani, because if they're fully fit, I think these players do come in. But it's a good option for Andoni to have a quick look in that first half at this side. We know that there were changes in the second half, but happy to see that lineup. Is it close to where you think we'll be in a few weeks' time?
Well, hopefully there's a few areas to strengthen, because I think that central midfield area needs a proper Jefferson Lerma replacement. But yeah, it's definitely good to see a left back come in. I'm obviously must admit I didn't watch the friendly. My viewing was restricted to the goals, so I didn't actually see how most of them actually got on through the 90 minutes. But yeah, that side looks like it's got a couple of areas to strengthen, but looks mostly close to full strength.
We'll show some clips in a moment from that game last night. Steve, what I like to see as the scores were popping up on my phone was quick out the blocks, and then I was getting the highlights similar to David. I was able to get some scores and images coming through, like the second goal where we pressed really high up against a Russell Martin team. We like playing Russell Martin football teams and capitalised on that. Goals from Christie, goals from Dangu Tara early on gave us a 2-0 lead.
Yeah, and it could have been more, to be honest. We could have been well out of sight by half time. And yeah, like you say, the lads were straight out of the blocks really quickly, really intense. Ryan Christie especially, Milos Kirkes, very impressive. Say them, they appear on the screen. Yeah, they were really good. Atara was good. I mean, it was very, very much that. It was we were really like 100 mile an hour to start with. And like I say, we had further opportunities, and on our day a bit more finely tuned, I think we would have been 3, maybe 4 up by half time. But yeah, it's a friendly, like John said, and then I know there's been a few sort of murmurings, a bit of sort of people picking on certain players, but you've got to take it for what it is. It was a good run out. The boys got some good minutes in their legs. We got to see what Andoni's press is all about, and you know, it's only going to get better. Let's not forget that this is the starting of all this. So a bit more fine tuning. We've got 2 more friendlies to come. Yeah, and it's I see good things already. I mean, Kirkes especially really impressed. I mean, so energetic. Really, he's 100 miles an hour, honestly, and you just think, blimey. He's amazing, but he didn't shirk anything. He was good on the ball. Yeah, really good sign. I really like him.
John, high press, even admin on Twitter were impressed with the high press from AFC Bournemouth. I think a few managers ago, we might have retreated to the halfway line and just tried to say, break us down. But no, we're trying to win the ball high up. And you will probably enjoy seeing those images again. And we're also talking about Ryan Christie. I jokingly said last night, he's turned into prime Richie, an assist and a goal. I think he smashed his stats from last season. Good to see. This is a guy that under Andoni Iraola, Christie's got all the attributes to thrive, just needs to get those match-winning numbers because he plays in a position where we need to get him adding numbers throughout the season.
Yeah, and I have to say, looking at the starting lineup as it was and how it played, it made me feel a lot better about that video I did about where I thought Christie and Billing would play this season, because it was exactly where I thought it would be, because Billing is able to, as Steve quite rightly said, played higher up than a typical 8 and was part of the sort of front press of the front 5, with Cook playing very much deeper in the defense in more of a defensive midfield position, but got forward as well. And the press itself was, you saw really good results from the press, with particularly the second goal, but there were a lot of moments very early on where we were getting a lot of joy out of it. It eased off a bit in the second half. But having said that, you still saw Ouattara nick the ball from about 2 yards out from their goal, and we managed to still not score from that particular situation. So hopefully that changes in the future, but we'll be coming onto that, I'm sure. But yeah, I think that there were definitely moments where it was beaten a little bit too easily. There was some disjointedness in particularly after all the subs were made. I think you saw Traore trying to initiate a press, and then the midfielders not quite backing him up as much as he would have liked. You know, but they're all teething problems. All of the sort of things where I could go, that's definitely not what we want to see, and that wasn't really put into the correct spot, was were few and far between for the most part, and those would be ironed out. The interesting one for me also was Senesi. Senesi's position, once the first midfield and attack line of press is broken, Senesi ended up almost on the halfway line while the rest of the defence dropped with their men. Senesi would often be the one that sort of chased the striker down to put the pressure on him, and he won quite a lot of balls just barely inside the Saints half, pressing up against whether it was Adams or whoever the attacking midfielder was in that position. So yeah, there was a lot of really successful work that was going on with that press. Well, you know, and hopefully we'll be able to turn that into more and more chances through the season.
Carol loved Kirkes, my man of the match. I mean, this is your first opportunity, David, to talk about Kirkes. I mean, John Zamora, who? I mean, that's literally what people are saying. We've actually got a better left back, we think now, than we had Jay-Z. And Kirkes, like Steve said, looks like he's on the money. Everything that we thought we're going to get, and the scouting team, the recruitment, it looks like he is going to be something special. Almost someone that will get so much good stuff out of him for a couple of years and probably make a load of money out of him. But he looks like he's going to be a fan favourite.
I hope so. As I said, I didn't see any of the game yesterday, so I don't know how he went on. But reading, obviously, the forums and Twitter, you know, everybody seemed to love him. So hopefully more of that to continue. And yeah, definitely a position we needed to fill with Jay-Z going, and not too sure what's happening with Lloyd Kelly, but definitely sounds like a much more attacking left back than the one that we've currently got.
Still can't defend set pieces though, Steve. So when Andoni Iraola makes his notes up from last night, we need to stop conceding goals from set pieces. But look, it's pre-season, like you've said, like John said. But yeah, we saw enough of those goals go in last season. We don't want to see too many this season.
No, what was annoying? They were silly free kicks really to give away. I think the first one's, is it Dango comes clumsy challenge behind, and then it's really badly defended. It's just that literally he's got to jump on. I think it's Meps actually, just out jumps him. You know, I know it's pre-season, but it's basics really. That second one was a quick free kick. We weren't really switched on. Adam Armstrong's had a shot. I think it was Adam, was Stuart. Which one of the Armstrongs it was? Was it Stuart?
Stuart, yeah.
And I just think that caught Neto unawares. Really, I think we were just a bit switched off at that moment. But for the whole, you know, if we can iron out, like John says, if we can iron out these little frailties, little problems, I'm sure Andoni will have the boys in, and we're talking about this sort of stuff. Because I think Lewis was a bit guilty at times. He gave the ball away a couple of times, a couple of silly fouls in and around the box that we got away with. So, yeah, we want to just stop those silly little mistakes. But the positives were the going forward. I think John makes a good point. When we did bomb on forward, and everyone's saying how brilliant Kirkes was, and he was, but there was a couple of moments where they turned the ball over quickly, and it was straight in behind our fullback, and it was like, it kind of is a little bit. You can see the frailty there. I do think we're in for some Eddie Howe type score lines in the coming season. It will be some sort of, 3-2 is probably going to be. I mean, maybe Sammy will get a scoreline of 3-1 right a few more times than usual. But I can see this being a few basketball games this season, definitely.
David, I said this a few weeks ago on a previous episode, and I said,
please tell us what you said.
James said it, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a bit of fun. We've had a couple of seasons where we've got results, we've got wins, we've got promoted. It's been tough to watch at times, but it could literally be end to end most weeks. Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things we need to make sure we do is actually finish our chances, because under Eddie, with that game style, we were free flowing and scoring goals, whereas
this squad has struggled for goals at times and has wasted chances. So whilst it might be entertaining football back in end to end, we've got to make sure that if they are basketball score lines, we get on the end of them as well. Otherwise, it could be some very nasty results.
Finish our chances. Well, that might be a topic that's coming right your way in the next few minutes, John. Because when I put a tweet out after that scoreline last night, 3 in a row at St Mary's, what is your hot take? This is what the Bournemouth fans were saying from that result. Let's drop down. AFCB Rob, still a lot of work to do. AFCB community. Kirk will be in the team of the season and get 5+ goal contributions. Mark my words. Going to say this guardly because I was very wrong about Brooks about 4 weeks ago, but we desperately need a right back. I love Smudge's energy and commitment to the team, but damn, he played like a wrecking ball out there. That's what happens when you lose a step. Not a hot take. Need a striker. Solanke needs to up his game. I'll take Iriola tactics over Parker fashion any day. Need a striker, says Chris Jones. We need a striker desperately, says Sam. Just putting it out there. Set pieces. Kirkes for 15 mil is a steal. So those were the hot takes yesterday, John. And that takes us on to Dom Solanke. Again, I said last week, it's a position I think we need to recruit in. I do think Dom Solanke has a place in this squad, a strong place in this squad. Do I think he'll score the numbers that we need to take us on to that next level that Bill Foley's talked about? I just don't. He scored 29 goals in the Championship in our promotion season, got 6 last season, 8% goal conversion from the shots he took. That was pretty much the worst of any good striker in the bottom half of the table last season. Dom Solanke does have a part to play. Do you think we need a striker, though, that can put the ball in the back of the net more often?
Yes, I think that in terms of like what you want out of a striker, certainly what fans most want out of a striker, the one that's wearing the number 9 on their back, that you need to be scoring goals and you need to be scoring a good 10 or so in the Premier League if you're going to be consistently keeping your team in the division. But it isn't all that for Iraola's current system. Like, admittedly, you know, it's. I'm not going to say Solanke doesn't have to score goals. He needs to be involved in X, Y, and Z, which is nonsense. He has to score goals, but I do feel as though at the moment it's being a little bit undervalued how much he can impact this new system, and maybe the things are getting a little bit too partisan online. It's basically you either think Solanke's not good enough or you think he's, you know, the best thing since sliced bread. And the reality is he's comfortably somewhere in between. There would definitely be another striker we could bring in that could score us more goals. Is he going to be able to initiate the press and have the stamina and the physicality to do what Iraola wants in this and score all those goals? Well, it's hard. The current striker market is not very big. You've only got to look at the kind of values that people are putting on strikers that, you know, nowadays from not even in the Premier League. And it would be tough for us to find what a lot of fans want, and then for him also to do what Iraola will want him to do. It's not going to be easy. So right now we've got Solanke, we've got Semenyo, who we really don't know whether he's good enough at this level, really, because he's been injured for too long. Looks like Moore might move on, but only if we get another striker in. And if we get that other striker, that will be really good competition for Solanke, and maybe it will improve him. But, you know, at the moment, I'm happy with Solanke. And while he hasn't scored this pre-season, you have had goals from Ouattara, Billing, Brooks. You've had goals from a lot more all over the place, and that was the thing we really struggled with last season. It took us a while to get goals from sort of more than about 5 players. So yeah, I'm really not worried about the striker position at the moment, but I can understand where the consideration is coming from fans.
Yeah, not enough goals in 2 seasons really, and there was a promoted one in there, Steve. So we do need to score more goals from more areas of the pitch, 100%. Where are you at with Dom Solanke? Because we have had this conversation before, and you've almost talked about potentially him playing a deeper role like a 10 and maybe someone playing ahead of him. I think that Jaden Anthony's come up in the conversation in the chat before. Can Justin Kluivert do that? Because I do want Dom Solanke to play a part this season, but he has gone full circle. He does lack confidence at time in front of goal. He does take too many touches. And again, it looks like he missed a bit of a good chance. Now, we are talking about pre-season. This is not based on last night. I'm going back 3 years now. But what do we do with Dom Solanke? And do we need to recruit another striker to put a bit of pressure on him to maybe go and get those goals?
Yeah, I think there's a case to be made that he could do some competition, some serious competition, because I just don't think, well, like John said, Semenyo we don't really know yet, and I don't think Moore's really pushing him as hard as we would want him to and giving him that competition and trying to keep him on his toes as much. I'm with everybody else. I think, we want to see Dom as part of the team. I talked about him dropping into the 10 role, but I kind of talked about that if we were to lose Billing, and would it be sort of something he could do? Now, I think he could, but then we would obviously need to get someone who's quick in behind, because I don't think we have really anyone who I would say is a better finisher than Dom within the squad. I don't think we've got anyone better at finishing.
Maybe Billing.
I mean, Billing's a good finisher.
Yeah, but are you going to play Billing you're not going to play Billing as a striker, are you? So therein my point is, it's kind of, there's who else you're going to put there, and because we don't know about Semenyo, it's a bit of one of those. I would like to see someone come in for him to compete with him, just to keep him on his toes more than anything, because there is a case to say you can kind of think this spot's mine. It's my spot every week because we haven't got anyone else. And he has, last night I can understand why people got on his back a little bit. It wasn't the greatest performance. We are talking about a pre-season game. He missed a very, very simple chance. And even from the word go, when we were 100 miles an hour at the beginning, he had a chance to have a shot on goal. When he took too long, defender got in on him again, bit like the Aston Villa scenario last season. So he just needs to. To me, it's sharpen up a little bit. I think he's more than capable, personally. But then I see a lot of in his game that it's just, he can do almost everything. But I just don't see at the minute we've got anyone better to be in that position, unless we bring someone in. So it's his to lose, unfortunately, at the moment.
Ian Thompson says, ultimately, all teams want a striker to bang in a dozen or so goals. Rodrigo did that for Leeds, and Leeds got relegated. He's absolutely spot on there, David. Ollie also said as well that Solanke needs to step up. 6 goals is simply not good enough. His all-round game is great, but he's a striker. His goal is to get the ball in the back of the net. And what I think he's been doing, especially last season, and maybe during that 29-goal season, is he's been working so much harder on other stuff and team play and trying to run, link play and do a job, a team job, that he's almost doing that to secure his spot in the team. Because if he doesn't score enough goals, well, I'm still going to pick Dom Solanke because he works hard for the team and he does all this other stuff.
Well, I think for a team like us who were battling to avoid relegation, you needed somebody who was going to work their socks off, even in a striker's position. So I think he filled that position. It's just whether when we try and build on this current position that we're in, whether he's got that natural goal scoring ability, which he doesn't seem to have. But I don't think definitely we don't have the players in at the moment that could compete with him. But I agree with Steve. If we bring somebody in, at least there's some competition and some pressure on him to perform and get those numbers.
We'll have to see then what happens with Dom Solanke. I'm sure he'll start up top for us against West Ham, but will Andoni Iraola recruit another striker to apply more pressure, and maybe Kiefer Moore will end up going out as well. But it was a good result for the Cherries last night, 3-2, and we'll move on to Atalanta at the weekend. But with the link between Bournemouth and Southampton, we thought we would have a go at naming our top 3 favourite players that have played for both Bournemouth and Southampton. So get involved in the chat. Do tell us. And I'm going to ask John, Steve and David who their top 3 are as well. Okay. So your top 3 favourite players that have played for both Bournemouth and Southampton. Quite a few, guys. Quite a few. I'm going to come to Steve first because I reckon he's going to have some belters. So Steve, let's do
I would
3
come to me
to
last
1.
because I'm going to bore everyone from the 80s and 90s.
Belters.
No one watching to know who they are.
Let's have your 3 to 1.
Well, so you want to go in reverse order?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I'm going to number 3 for me would be one-time manager, great, pretty much played everywhere in the back line at some point, was Kevin Bond. Thought he was he is a legend of the club, really. Assistant manager as well. So he was ever dependable, I'd run all day for you. Wasn't the most naturally gifted, I must admit, but he was, from where we were at the time, it's sort of early 90s, I guess. He was just after we sort of got relegated back down again. He was he was a hardworking, great sort of stalwart of the club, and he would be my number 3. Number 2, I will go for someone who played in the same sort of era, was early 90s again, and this was a bit of a bigger name, Jimmy Case. He came to us at the back end of his career. I think he was about 36, 37 at the time. And you thought, and he came from Saints, and you thought, oh, just going to get a cast off here. And actually, he was really good for us. He couldn't really run much anymore, but he didn't need to because he had the likes of Sean O'Driscoll, and I think we had Matty Holmes and maybe even Tony Pulis around that time. You know, you had some people to do his donkey work, but he was so classy on the ball still. He just sort of sprayed the ball around. He still had a bit of niggle in him. Great moustache. And that was, I'm pretty sure he only had him for one season, and he was the season when we had my favourite kit, which was the A1's windscreens, blue, black stripes, or a bit like Inter Milan. Yeah. Right, number 1 was easy for me. This is the guy that got me hooked on Bournemouth, really. And up until that point, I was probably about 8 or 9. And up until that point, I'd just been going with my dad and sort of running around the terraces, not really paying much attention to the football. And then this guy popped up for a season, and he just seemed to score all the time. And I was like, and it just got me involved. And that was Colin Clark, Northern Irish striker. He scored, I think it was about 26 goals and about 85 for us. And he ended up getting into the Northern Ireland squad that went to the 86 World Cup, which was, again, another reason why he's there, because I was like, blimey, little Bournemouth have got a player in the World Cup. And it was like, just got me engrossed to football. Yeah, there you go. Just got me engrossed into football at the time. And I think he ended up scoring at that World Cup against Spain or something like that. I don't think Northern Ireland did anything, but just to me, that was massive at the time. And I think he went on to Saints, and he was in the top flight at the time. I think we got quite a hefty whack for him at those days. I think we did quite well out of that deal. If anyone can remember what we got for him, that would be great in the chat. But I don't. I just remember it was quite a big thing at the time. I think he went on to score like 20 odd goals for Saints in the first division as it was. But yeah, Colin Clark for me, great striker. Could do with him now, actually. He would bang a few goals in. But yeah, he would be my number 1. I've bored everyone my history lesson now.
3, 2, 1. Told you they'd be good. Colin Clark, number 1. Right, David, what's your top 3 favourite players that have played for both the Cherries and Southampton?
Yeah, 1 and 2 were easy. I'd say there were a lot of players. Steve's contributions predated my involvement with the club. I was sort of looking around the mid 2000s to see who was there. I'll have to go with number 3 was a player who was coming towards the end of the career when I started following. Goalkeeper that I don't really remember playing. I don't remember too much of him playing, but definitely was always there, was Neil Moss, and goalkeeping coach still today. I think is he still the goalkeeping coach?
Yeah.
I'll stick with the theme of goalkeepers. And number 2 was Artur Boric, who definitely was a character and stalwart in Eddie's promotion team. And I think number 1 was Andrew Sermon. So those are my top 3.
Number 1 for David was Sirs, Andrew Sermon. Very, very good. Let's just pop into the chat and then I'll hand over mine and John's. Aaron Kay's in the chat. He's gone for George Lawrence, David Puckett, and Mark Whitlock. Yeah, Aaron and Steve need to go for a beer because I'm sure they'll be talking for hours about their history of AFC Bournemouth. Omid's gone for Artur Boruc, AFC Bournemouth, Germany. Danny Ings is my first. Colin Clark was in there as well. Ted McDougall came up in a previous quiz a few weeks ago. Dave Armstrong, Andrew Sermon, Danny Ings, and Boruc. Will's gone for Stevens, Boruc, Lee Barnard.
Lee Barnard. Oh.
Yeah.
Jimmy Case.
The thing with it was it who put up David Armstrong? Because he was a good player, but we only really had him for about, I don't even know how many games he played, but we had him one season right at the end. I think he retired injured, and it's a shame. He recently passed away as well, which is a shame, but very good player. Just a shame we never saw much of him.
Now, because I was relying on everyone else to bring out some really good names, I've gone for someone that I don't think a lot of people will go for. Not necessarily a top player for a long time, but had a top moment. But thank you to David. I'm glad he said Sermon because I've gone for a couple of goalkeepers. I'm going to chuck Neil Moss in at number 3, club legend as well, still at the club. I am also going to go. No, this is number 2. I'm going to go for Kenwyne Jones. What a moment at Portman Road in our promotion.
Can't put him in.
It's not really a top player, but what a goal and a moment. That was a crucial moment in our promotion at Portman Road. We needed that equaliser off the bench.
What's number 1? Dan Seaborn then?
No. Jamie Redknapp. No. I've gone for Artur Boruc. Great goalkeeper in the Championship, in the Premier League. Look, his goal kicks were a little bit dodgy at times, but did love Artur Boruc and he was a fan favourite. So, John, that's my top 3. Over to you.
Yeah, mine's not exactly that exploratory of our history, considering my involvement with the football club, again, doesn't go back even as far as David's, I don't think. But I think someone has already actually given my top 3 out in the chat. Is number 3, I'd go for Danny Ings. Didn't really play with us for all that long in the end, but he was a Bournemouth youth product. Although obviously, like a lot of Bournemouth youth products, he was a cast off from Southampton, if I remember correctly, and obviously went back there again. But I do still remember the goal to put us in front in the League One's playoff semi-final against Huddersfield. A header from what I remember being about 30 yards out. Every
time you tell the story, it gets further.
Yeah, every time I remember the story, the ball, his leap comes from further and further away, like Space Jam and Michael Jordan. But it's and obviously you have a soft spot for anyone that comes through your academy in any way, and obviously he was our record sale for for a decent bit of time. Obviously joining Eddie at Burnley at the time. And actually kind of was important in getting Eddie Howe back, because I think that was part of the stipulation that we brought Eddie from Burnley, was that we sort of like partially wrote off a lot of the money they hadn't paid us for Danny Ings yet, if I remember, was part of the rumours I remember hearing on that one. But the other 2 is I think exactly the same as David's. Second is Artur Boruc, and first is Andrew Sermon. Not really much more to say about either of those 2, because even if you haven't followed Bournemouth for that long, those 2 are legends of the club, and were fantastic servants. Artur Boruc was a little bit erratic at times, but he was a hell of a shot stopper, and one hell of a character as well. And then obviously Andrew Sermon formed that legendary central midfield partnership with Harry Arter, would definitely be my favourite on there, I think.
And the best looking Bournemouth player ever.
Number 1 for his looks. And it's one of those, Steve, with Andrew Sermon, that I think he got a little bit more credit when he left, because he just went about his work quietly, and he just allowed those players in front of him to thrive. Your Mark Hughes, your Harry Arters, your Matt Ritchies, all of that. And he just mopped everything up, sideways Sermon, but got us going up the field. And Sermon was a great player, but sometimes it wasn't noticed at the time.
No, he's massively underrated. I think the most vibrant I ever remember him being was the sort of Battle of Old Trafford game when he ended up getting himself sent off. That was about his only one misdemeanor in his whole sort of career with AFC Bournemouth. He was squeaky clean Sermon, and but he, like you say, he did the basics. He did them very well. He set off our attacks, and he actually did. He didn't have a bad sort of ping out wide on him, so he wasn't completely sideways Sermon, but it's just a horrible tag he picked up. Sexiest man in an AFC Bournemouth shirt I've ever seen. Best tan, barring Jason Tyndall, I suppose, but yeah, great player.
Not as sexy as you, Mr. Hensman. Quickly, we'll move on after I've just said that. That is your top three footballers that have played for both Bournemouth and Southampton. We're now going to mop up the rest of the news that's been doing the rounds in the last 7 days, because we need to have an interesting conversation about the very, very good Philip Billing that's got 12 months left on his contract. So we now know that Kirk was confirmed as an AFC Bournemouth player, had an impressive debut at St Mary's. Adam Smith wants officials to be mic'd up. Other sports do it. Let's be open and honest in football as well. Bournemouth have agreed a deal for goalkeeper Radu. He will sign on a season-long loan with an option to buy, not an obligation though. This will mean that Mark Travers will be heading back to the Championship on loan to Stoke City. And Iraola has confirmed that Marcus Tavernier will miss the start of the season. Yeah, quickly, guys. So, goalkeeper change here. Radu's coming in from Inter Milan, David. He's had a lot of loans in his career. Don't go and have a look on YouTube. Actually, I posted it on social media. He made a bit of a howler for Inter Milan and Bologna and cost them the league. So don't go and look at that. I have fear of Northstown going into meltdown. So Radu's coming in. Mark Travers going out on loan. I suppose it's the right call, and it's a goalkeeper backup for Neto.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know too much about Radu. I imagined he was the backup keeper at Inter. And look, I think from a personal point of view, I think it was for Mark to get some full-time football is what's needed. Ultimately, he's proven himself at championship level, so it's about him retaining that level of quality at that level. I don't know how much it's going to transfer back to the Premier League when he does get that opportunity. But he does need to be playing football week in, week out. And hopefully Neto has a injury-free year and Radu just sits there as a backup.
Hopefully. Someone who might not be starting in the starting lineup, Steve, on the opening day is Marcus Tavernier. Iraola said that he's likely to miss the start of the season. Massive player for us, massive contributions last season to help us stay up, and let's just hope it's nothing serious, because I know we're adding to this squad, but he is a big time player for us.
Yeah, it's a massive disappointment actually. It's you just hope, and your fears are, because what we've seen so far in his short spell here is just injury after injury, and we really hope that it's not I hate to bring up Stan's case, but you know what his history was like, and I hope it's not a repetition of that, because he's actually, they're probably quite similar as far as sort of talent goes, because Stam's a very good player, just dogged of injury, and this just, I don't know why, just reeks of the same. I hope not, for his sake, because he is very exciting on his day, and like you say, it was his debut season last season, and he chipped in with all sorts of wonder goals and assists. Really shone, stood out. So yeah, I'd really hope he's young. I just hope it doesn't hamper him too much, and we see him back on the pitch, sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we think it's just going to be a loan deal, John, for Mark Travers, and let's see what he can do. He's got that golden glove before in the Championship. I think he's very comfortable at that level. I do hope that Travers can make that step up. He's still young as a goalkeeper and can become a really good Premier League goalkeeper, but he's on a long contract. He's still young. Loan's the right move.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's not helped at times a goalkeeper, particularly when they're still a bit young, is if there isn't a stability and there isn't a solid defence in front of them. If they're forced to continue to make saves time and time again, then they are going to struggle. I mean, Mark Travers conceded a lot of goals, but then, his Irish compatriot in Bazunu was comfortably the worst statistically goalkeeper in the league last season. Obviously, Southampton went down, but he suffered taking shots every 5 seconds against that Southampton back line. So, going to Stoke is an interesting one, because Stoke is just one of those teams that since they've been into the Championship, they've threatened to do something and then have always just completely collapsed with about a quarter of the season to go and finished in lower mid-table for the last, 5 years. So, and obviously Kilkenny went there, didn't get anything last season, but then Ben Pearson did, and obviously they liked him enough to sign him permanently. So got a mixed history with sending players to Stoke, let's put it that way. But it's just it'll be a loan. I hope he gets the number 1 shirt they're using the whole season. He gets a bit of confidence back, and a different voice as well in terms of training. You mentioned Neil Moss; he's been a goalkeeper coach for us for a long time. Maybe another voice is just going to give him something new, something different, and something else to improve on, and it could be the making of him. But I'm sure we'll whether we see him in a Bournemouth shirt again, I don't know, but he won't be going to Stoke permanently, not this time around, I don't think.
I know. I thought we were meant to be feeding Lorient, but we seem to be feeding Stoke City an awful lot. So let's see how Ben Pearson. I know Ben Pearson's gone on permanent, but let's see how Travers
rename
gets
them
on.
Bournemouth B.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, we were Liverpool B for a while, so let's not throw stones in glass houses.
No. Mark Travers is on a long contract. Someone who's not on a long contract is Philip Billing, age 27. Got a contract until June 24, over 150 appearances, 29 goals, 16 assists, guys. And when you break down his seasons with us, he has got better. Only 1 goal and 1 assist in that first season, in that relegation season with Eddie Howe. Improved in the Championship thanks to Jonathan Woodgate. 8 goals, 4 assists. Kicked on again. Put a massive smile on Jon Spark's face when he got double 10 goals, 10 assists. And then he kicked on last season, top goal scorer, 7 goals, only 1 assist. But Steve, contract is running down. We revisit Philip Billing again, conversations we've had before, because if he doesn't sign for me, he's got to go. But the fan base are talking about, you keep him, irregardless of whether he signs or not. You've got to keep Philip Billing because he's massive to us. We'll have a look at the squad in a minute, because I think there are players that are stepping up to the mark. Look at David Brooks, who's hungry. Look at Traore, who got an assist last night. I want Philip Billing in our team. Sign the contract, though, because he's 27 and worth at least 15-20 million.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it comes down to him personally, doesn't it? Like you said, and I think we all pretty much agree that you want to keep him at the club if he wants to be here. He's massively improved. He's certainly changed my mind over the period of time he's been here. And yeah, but equally, if we did cash in on him, I think we've got players that can fill that void, albeit not quite as proven as Phil. But I still think there's talent there. We looked to Traore. I think David Brooks could do a job there. I think even Christie could do a job there. Jaden Anthony. We've spoke about this before. We've got options if he were to go. I think it just purely comes down to him himself, whether he wants to be here anymore. It's been a bit of a torrid time for him as a player, because he has at times been on the wrong end of criticism from the fan base. I think he's spoken about mental health problems he's had. So maybe he's just, he himself, that's why he's not signing the contract, just to sort of see if he's got any other options, because he may just fancy a move. Players have a shelf life at clubs, and if he feels like he's run his course here, I don't think there's any bad blood. So it would be nice if we could sort of just get round the table with him and say, look, if you don't want to be here, let's sort something out now for you, Phil.
Let's just take a look then at a potential lineup, David. This is just a bit of a dummy lineup. There are other players you could potentially play in Kluivert's position, but I've gone for this team. You'll see Billing in his further forward role here. But what I'm talking about, David, if he doesn't sign a contract, like Steve's spoken about, Christie, if he adds numbers, can play that role. Traore can play that role. Even Clivert potentially could tuck inside. Brooks, like many of the contributors on Cherries Red Army have spoken about, can play that role. When he's fit, Tavernier can play that role. I love Billing, but I'm really anxious at the fact that we could let another player go for nothing in his prime, especially when you're chasing someone like Alex Scott. Why don't you just cash in if he doesn't sign a contract and then go and get Alex Scott? It's probably not that easy, but I think that we can add value in that centre midfield if Billing doesn't sign a new contract and bring another player in.
Yeah, I'm not concerned that we don't have other options to replace him with in the current squad. Just like Steve says, he's got proven goal-scoring numbers, whereas in the Premier League, whereas the others don't quite yet. I mean, obviously Tavernier has the numbers, but if you look at Christie and Brooks has had a bit of time out, and it'd be a risk to replace him. But once again, if he doesn't sign a contract, you're going to lose him next year for nothing, and you may as well just bite the bullet. But once again, I think, as Steve said, it comes down to having a conversation with him and what his plans are, and just doing, I think, what the player wants.
But John, there are fans out there that are literally saying we are better off keeping him this season than letting him go and losing out on 15, 20 million, which I just can't see the logic. I mean, where are you at with Philip Billing? Because do we need to apply pressure? I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but do the club need to say, look, come on, look, we want you to stay. You're a massive player for us, top goal scorer last season. But we need to know. We need to know you're signing or not, because we're trying to plan for Europe here.
Interesting end to that question, because I'm fairly certain the club are not planning to be in Europe
long-term
next
plan, my
season.
friend. Long-term plan.
Okay, but Jefferson Lerma, we were well aware that he wasn't going to sign a contract, and he kept playing. I find it odd that Jordan Zamora was basically frozen out with 6 months to go when he wasn't seemingly interested in signing a deal. In terms of the logic's sound in either direction, because the simple fact is, do you think that keeping Philip Billing is the turning point between us staying up or not? Because if you think he is, you keep him, because getting 15 to 20 million is fair enough. How much money is it worth to stay in the Premier League? Over 100 million. So it's not a drop in the ocean by any means, but it's far more important to stay in the division than it is to make 15 to 20 million off a player. Having said that, like we have both spoken about, Kirk, we are frustrated at Bournemouth's seemingly lack of really making actually decent sales of their players. I think Eddie Howe was partly the cause of that back in our first time around, because he was very unwilling to let anyone from the squad go that he used for more than 5 times in a season. But I think that with the new style, with the new manager, with so many more faces coming in, I would love to see Philip Billing stay for longer than just this season. And if he stayed this season and he left on a free, I'm not going to be heartbroken about it. And I would quite like to see him and see what he can do in this system. And if he finds that he's enjoying it and he's getting a lot out of it and that we're getting a lot of success, you never know, he might be tempted to sign. But how long have we heard rumours that he maybe would be interested in a move away? It was the case sometime into our first season in the Championship when he wasn't getting many minutes. Fairly certain I remember seeing rumours that in January he was asking his agents to look to see if there was anyone out there that would be interested in buying him. Those are just rumours, but it doesn't surprise me. He is perfectly capable of playing in a team that's playing in Europe. And if I was him, I wouldn't be signing a contract. So it's just about the club, and are the club confident that that they can get him to sign a deal? And if they can't, are they confident we'll stay up without him? And if they are, then yeah, why not sell him? And heck, if you bring in 15 to 20 million for him, that's in the kitty that goes towards the likes of an Alex Scott or another midfielder that can replace him. So there's always going to be turnaround, and I personally don't expect Billing to be a Bournemouth player in a year's time, whether that's because we sell him or because he runs out his deal. We'll have to wait and see.
I can't believe I'm going to aim this question at you, Steve, but I am going to do it. There are people in the chat that are saying if he stays and we stay up, we get more than 15, 20 million. But I'm thinking 15, 20 million and 100 million for Premier League status, because I still think we are good enough to stay up without Philip Billing because of the squad we are building. But if you're letting go of 15, 20 million again, like we did with Lerma, and prices go up around the club and stuff keeps going up, this is where people get frustrated when you don't try and get an extra 5 million for finishing higher in the Premier League. I understand what people are saying, that the value of Philip Billing on the pitch is important, but I think he's replaceable to a point, or I think we've got players in this squad that can add the value. Maybe not instantly. I'm not saying Traore can get 7-8 goals this season, but he's got the quality that can add value in this team. And I don't think we'll be back to square one if Philip Billing wasn't in the side.
No, I don't think he's pivotal to us staying up or getting relegated. I think there's players within our squad that can quite easily cope. I think David Brooks is the one. I mean, David just mentioned about numbers. Well, he's proven he's had numbers before in the Premier League, albeit in a different position. But he's played. In fact, actually, he's played alongside Josh King in games up front. He's played. He's quite versatile in that regard. So I don't fear it. I get what people are saying, that if we get relegated, that that's a stupid bit of business, because we could have kept him, stayed up. I don't think he's that's sort of in seasons gone past. We're now in a new era under a new manager who's got a new outlook on things. It's quite clear he wants people from all around the pitch to chip in with goals. He wants his fullbacks to be really progressive. It's a completely different kettle of fish. So I don't think we're going to be as reliant on a player like Phil Billing as we have been. So yeah, I like Phil. I want him to stay because I still think he could do a job, and I'm sure Areola does. But I think there was a good point there made by AFCB Germany, I think it was, is that he'd probably have more. I know he struggled with getting in the international squad set up with Denmark. There is probably a thing that would say he may have a better chance of doing that at, say, a club that's playing in a European competition. I know there's been murmurings of Spain before. So again, it's a conversation needs to be had with him and see where his head's at, where he wants to go, what he wants to do, where he sees us being, if he wants to buy into this new Areola, regime going forward. So it's certainly going to be a big decision for him and for the club. But I'd be happy with either way, to be fair.
Very, very quickly then, guys, if I go around the room, if Philip Billing doesn't sign a contract, do you give him a deadline, David?
I wouldn't say you give him a deadline, but I think you start looking for a replacement. And that 15, 20 million that you could make, if you could identify a replacement, then yeah, you could try and engineer a sale. But like Steve said, I'm not fussed either way whether he stays or goes. I think it's a fairly low risk decision for the club, and 15, 20 million is not, for a guy like Bill Foley, he's not going to swing the pendulum too much. So I think we'll just wait and see how it plays out. And I think, as I said, I think it's fairly low risk.
John, would you put any heat on Philip Billing to sign a contract, or are you very comfortable irregardless of the outcome?
You can put some pressure on him. You can definitely talk about something like that, but I don't know. I think I mentioned Jefferson Lerma ran down his contract, and everyone sort of just understood it and went, "Okay, fair enough. Well done, off you go." And he was our record signing, still is. So yeah, you can, but I don't think the club are just going to say, if you don't sign, we'll sell you, because you've got to find a team that'll buy him as well. So that there's more than just Billing himself to consider.
Any fear, Steve, that he might take his eye off the ball if he's potentially thinking already away from AFC Bournemouth after the 23-24 season?
No, not really. I think he's in that prime of his career now, and he wants to be. If he does want to move away, he's going to want to be in the shop window, isn't he? He's going to want to be functioning at his best and putting himself out there. So I can't see that. I think we know he's loyal enough now to not be that sort of player. I don't think he's got. I think he might have been earlier on in his career, bit sulky at times, but I don't. He's matured as a player, as a person. I don't think he's that anymore. I would be very surprised if that would be the case, because it wouldn't look good for a potential move for him, would it? So, no, I think we just need to see how it plays out. It's I don't know. I'm just trying to think who would be in for him. That's because I haven't heard any murmurings of any. This is the thing. I think the club are keeping our transfer business on a whole very, very, very quiet. We don't really hear a lot, and I wonder if that's the same for approaches for our players, because you don't really hear a lot of that either. So it'd be interesting, because I'm sure there would be suitors out there for him, definitely.
And quickly, I put in green the players that I think, or the positions on the pitch that we're very comfortable going into the Premier League season, and 3 reds where I think potentially, and I'm not saying it's not Solanke, but potentially we could add value to that starting 11. David, I'm looking at that CDM. I'm looking at Smudge at right back, maybe another striker, because Solanke potentially could drop in if Billing stays, if he potentially leaves.
Yeah, I'd put exactly how you put it there. I'd probably also put, with Rothwell's injury history, I'd probably want 2 central midfielders in there. But yeah, definitely need those, at least Smith and Cook, to be relegated to a squad position. And yeah, just need a little bit of midfield depth.
Do you agree with that, Steve? And would you expect us to see some heavy movement in the next week as that first game gets ever closer?
Yeah, I hate the thing with Lewis Kirk. I so want him to succeed. I so want him to be the player I thought he was going to be. But again, I sort of watching him last night, and I just thought, oh, come on, Lewis. Just that he had moments where he skipped past 2 players with some quick little tidy footwork, and then he'd just go and play a rubbish back pass and put us in trouble, or dwell on the ball. Yeah, we are looking very light in the midfield there. And I don't know. Do we need? I keep saying everyone keeps saying, do we need a Jeffrey Lerma replacement? We need that destroyer in there. I wonder if Iriola's look. I'll get it right sooner or later. Iriola's looking at the team and going, that's not what I want in my team. We don't know this. He might be looking at it. So I want sort of quarterback type deep midfielders that are spraying the ball up quickly. Don't know. We just don't know what he's thinking. I mean, we're going on this historically, is what we've had. We've always had the Jefferson Lerma. We've always had a Harry Arter. We've had a destroyer in there. It's definitely looking light, but I don't know if that's the sort of player that Iriola's got in his mind. That's the thing I would say.
And John, Andoni did highlight that last night. He did say in his post-match interview that midfield needs to be concentrated on. And as David says, we don't want to apply too much pressure to Rothwell and his fitness.
Yes, I mean, if you go back and watch the video I made about our current squad and where I think Iraola will want to improve the players, obviously at the time I mentioned 2 left backs, a right back, and a defensive midfielder. We've got one of those 4, but we need the other 3. We definitely need at least one more body at left back. Well, probably just one body at left back. We need someone to really play the right back role that Iraola desperately wants, because Adam Smith very clearly isn't that, even though he can put the effort in, he's just not. And while Fredericks could be, he's not got the fitness for it. So we need a right back. And then the defensive midfielder, Jefferson Lerma was a fan favourite, but if you look at him statistically, he doesn't really show up all that brilliantly in terms of his defensive work. Compared to the best in the league, as much as we thought he was and he was good in the tackle, he wasn't outstanding in any way in terms of the statistically. When you go to look at what Iraola had at Vallecano, he did have a ball-winning central midfielder there, one that was more ball winning and the other one that was a little bit more progressive. And Rothwell or Cook, I feel, can fit in the more progressive left-sided role that Billing took against Southampton. I don't think Cook or Rothwell are going to do the role that you need in the defensive, the more defensive one. I think Rothwell's got really good ball retention, and he's very press resistant, more so than Cook has after his spate of injuries. So I do have Rothwell slightly ahead of Cook in that position, but I don't think either of them are necessarily the ball winning. They've done the decent jobs. I think Cook can be vicious in the tackle if he wants to be, but his injuries, he's not really going to want to put himself on the line, and same with Rothwell. So we need someone that's going to be slightly more of the destroyer, not in the same way that a lot of people think, but just someone that is good in the tackle and is very good at anticipating and intercepting passes, which Cook often looks like he just forgets where he is on the pitch at times when the ball gets passed by him. So it's definitely those positions that are most important for me, and obviously the fans want to see another striker in the door. I think that's probably fourth on the list in terms of importance at the moment,
but we will see, because the transfer window is open for a little while yet. Do subscribe to Cherries Red Army, do hit the like button. Special thanks to our monthly members or anyone who has donated recently. You can donate or become a member at buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army, just like David Codron did. Thank you very much, David. Yeah, head over to their details in the description below. David's got his day ahead of him, about 6 o'clock now in Australia. Great to have your thoughts on this one. Are you excited for the season ahead, David, as we summarise this episode 2?
Yeah, definitely. It's been nice to have a little bit of a break, get some proper sleep in on the weekends. But definitely looking forward to that first game against West Ham and another long season.
And Steve, we'll be talking about Atalanta next week in episode 3. Maybe the third kit, maybe another transfer. But great to have you on again, and excited to see what happens in the next 7 days.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a whirlwind of news and stories, as it has been most weeks. But Atalanta on Saturday, 3 p.m. kickoff. Not to be confused with the following one, which is a 5 p.m. kickoff. I just realised today. That'll be good. A stern test, because they're a decent side, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about and digest next week.
Battle of the Hair, John. Thanks for coming back on. We'll see you on many more videos. But yeah, lots more to come for the Cherries. Good conversations we've had.
Yes, the L'Oreal Derby, as I think I've seen it online, and I definitely want that to be an official name if we play them again, as unlikely as that will be. But yes, Atalanta are actually one of the teams that has been rumoured to be interested in Billing by Fabrizio Romano, actually, along with West Ham. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. But yes, thank you very much for having me on. I'm actually travelling back down to Bournemouth this weekend, so I'm going to see if I'm able to get to that game and hopefully meet up with you guys, share a pint, and if anyone else sees me and wants to say hi, please say hi.
Fantastic. Safe travels, John. So thank you to you, the fans, for checking out this video. If you've watched it back on replay, do use those comments. We read every single one. From John, from Steve, from David, from myself, and one of the man of the matches from last night, Milos Kerkez.
Up the Cherries!
We'll see you on the next one. Up Cherries!
Up the Cherries.
You Reds!
Oh, cheers.